across the American continent, towing 30 tons or more at a time behind them.
Breaker 1-9. This is Texas Hawk. Anybody out there copy? Over.
Trouble.
Come back. This is Lizard Tail.
Step on it.
I'm telling all you losers to get out of my way.
Rock and roll. The roar of 450 horsepower engines. The drivers know these 26-meter vehicles like the backs of their hands. Time is running out. Don't slow down.
Hello and welcome, guys. It is Kev. Welcome back to the Dreamcast Junkyard Book Club. And we're going to go for bring in two guests. Here we are. It is Brian, and he's got his sidekick with him. So first time on camera. How's it going, Brian?
Good. How are you doing?
Very well, very well. And then joining us again, he's made a previous appearance before. He doesn't have a dog with him to compete with, Brian, though. But he does have a nice bookcase full of some Dreamcast stuff and some anime-looking stuff. And I'm being politer to him about the anime on the stream than I normally would be when we'd speak off stream. So there we go. Is that Dreamcast Girl?
Yeah,
I believe, Lewis.
Yeah.
Which I only know because of you, effectively. So
yeah. I've got the Saturn one up here as well. I don't have the Mega Drive, but yeah.
So welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us. It's great to have you back. Today we are going to be speaking about 18-wheeler American Pro Trucker. So we've gone with this game. It's technically the June game, but we went with this because it's near. Doesn't get a lot of love, and it's near the 4th of July, which is what, Brian?
Our Independence Day in 3 days from now.
Happy 4th of July to anyone out there who will be supporting that. So there we go. Right. So a little bit of an intro there. You'll notice that we don't have Mike at the minute. He may be joining us midstream. He was the reason why we had a slight delay. We were supposed to be coming live bang on 8:15, and we missed that because we were talking about what, Lewis?
What were we talking about? Weather, dogs,
and Mario Golf.
Mario Golf.
Right. So if only we had a bonus stream of that, you could have joined. You could have checked that. So we're going to start with how we normally start. 18-wheeler. I have got the Japanese version here that I paid £10 for, which I was delighted to spot. I only got that last year as well. I'm going to start with Brian. Brian, what's your experience of 18-wheeler? When did you first play it?
Oh wow. I feel like I must first played it. It was after the Dreamcast had died. Unlike the rest of the games we've been talking about so far on these book clubs, this one I did not have from launch. So I think I bought it around like mid 2000s, and I just would play it off and on. And in fact, I think it was a game that my mom actually bought in a bundle on eBay. She was gonna, for a while, she had like picked up a few video game console bundles with a bunch of games, and then she wanted to hold on and see if some of them would hold their value and sell them later, which I think worked out for some of it. But yeah, 18-wheeler was one of those, and I was like, I mind if I grab that one, and so I did. That one was so I've had it since then.
Yeah, because it was one of the later ones. We'll probably touch on that a bit. Lewis, the reason come to you second is I know you're like me in terms of, well, Brian as well, but I only played this for the first time last year. What about you, Lewis?
Well, I played it briefly at Bury Arcade Club, which you've been to, Kev, haven't you, Bury Arcade?
I have not. No, I've never managed to get there. That does preempt one of the titles that I was going to have up. I was going to see if anyone had ever actually played the arcade one of this. So we might jump into that. Was that the first experience of that, Lewis? Then
this was the experience. Two machines lined up. One's Crazy Taxi, 18-wheeler next door. Oh yeah, that's the one on the Dreamcast. Let me give it a go. Turned it on, and was just like, there's so much weight to these vehicles. This isn't Crazy Taxi. I don't like this. And I think I left it running and walked off.
Right, okay. That says a lot.
But I knew it's like obviously one of those ones where if I gave it a go, maybe at home on the Dreamcast, then obviously I could. And here's my copy on the SD card because I played it on GDM EMU. I was going to get a copy, but I'd just fixed my GDMU because I had a bit of a sad event with it where my other one broke, so I had to fix it. And so I got it working again. And you were saying 18-wheeler for the book club, and I thought perfect time to discover this game. So yeah.
Yeah, great, excellent. Yeah, Brian, have you ever played the arcade one then?
No, I haven't.
Okay, I'm just gonna, if I've got this right, this should just come up immediately. Here we go. Some of the great new features of Restream. Please give us a shout out in the chat, by the way, guys, because they've updated this and there's no comments in there yet, which could just be because we're not very entertaining, but normally we'd have a few people shouting out at us now. Is this the cab that you saw then? This is from an article that Tom wrote back in 2018. So you can see his homemade arcade cabinet above there. And then the one that, if you do a generic Google search for this, you'll spot this exact cabinet. Is this the one you played, Lewis? Is that?
No, the one I played was like a stand-up one, as was
right.
Crazy Taxi.
Crazy Taxi, yeah. But the actual cab for this looks fantastic. I really would love to see that. I've never seen that. My experience is entirely this thing here is entirely the Dreamcast. So I'm going to start. Lewis touched on this. And I'm going to bring up, I've got another pre-made graphic showing the genius of how my mind works and knowing the things that you were going to say. But go to you first, Brian. Is this just Crazy Taxi and trucks? Hashtag Crazy Trucksy.
I wish. No, it's not. It's definitely not. I think there's a lot of things about Crazy, like playing this again made me appreciate a lot of the things that made Crazy Taxi such a special game. And by contrast, I feel like 18-wheeler does not reward or even give much opportunity for experimentation, exploration, just like poking and prodding at its mechanics to try to milk out just all sorts of crazy outcomes. Oh, I think I'm coming through somebody's...
Sorry, that's me. I was just checking our stream was working. Carry on, Brian.
Oh, that's fair. So it's just like I feel like there's a lot more possibilities and more of a sandbox to play with Crazy Taxi that by comparison is just extremely limited with 18-wheeler. 18-wheeler, I feel like there's an illusion of choice in some of the different paths you can go down in some of the levels, but everything is just very linear, but like linear in a way that I don't feel like I'm going to get. There's only so much I can get out of it through repeated playthroughs. I don't feel like there's a lot of other things I can try or do differently when I play it again. So no, I think they're very different in that regard. Conceptually, yeah, they should, they seem like they could be similar, driving games that aren't necessarily racing games, but like have a, fantastical, exaggerated theme and time elements to it is always fun. But yeah.
Time is Dallas.
Yeah. So I'm just going to quiet this down. I know exactly what you mean because when I was having a little play around with this, I do like it. The thing me and Lewis were talking about, and again, to pull back the curtain, when Brian came on, me and Lewis, one of the first things we asked him was like, Brian, have you completed this? Because neither me or Lewis are very good at it. It is very hard, isn't it? That isn't just me imagining that. Lewis, I know you've had some challenging times with this. And Brian, the fact you said to me, well, yeah, I didn't get a great time, but I finished it. It indicates to me that maybe it is hard because you're my kind of guru of do I suck or am I doing okay? If I'm close to your times, I know that I'm doing okay. So what we're having a look at here is the second level, and it took me maybe 5 or 6 attempts to get off this. Me and Lewis were discussing the same thing, weren't we? Where we kept getting to the right to the checkpoint, as you can see, crashing into someone else's truck right away, right to the checkpoint, and then failing. So give us some tips, Brian. What could you tell us about how could we be better at this?
Honestly, slipstream is definitely my friend, and memorizing a lot of the bonus time cars are that give you an extra 3 seconds. There's a few shortcuts and stuff. Some of them are probably maybe the only way to go through the stage within the time limit. So there's kind of an illusion of choice there. I don't know. I guess it's just playing around with the combination of those things. Slipstreaming is probably the biggest one though. Just because it's, if you get behind another truck or your rival, was it Lizard Horn, whatever his name is?
I think it's Lizard Horn, isn't it? So
yeah. One thing I will say about him, he's annoying as shit, but I love like the second stage where he's just like complains that he got pulled over
I got pulled over for speeding
while he's
you.
just pummeling through a Texaco gas station, just like destroying everything. It's like, all right, well, if speeding is what they got you for, all right, whatever. So I don't know. There's a charm to it for sure. I think there's definitely a charm to that kind of that aspect of it. But as far as like playing it, I don't know. Just slipstreaming is probably my best
and just
that helped
and
me
on that note, before we kick across to Lewis, you've mentioned slipstreaming and you've mentioned charm, and someone who is very charming is about to slipstream straight into the stream.
Slip into the stream. Hey, Mike.
And it is Mike Feeling. It is the Dreamcast beard himself, Mike Feeling. Thank you for joining us. He's been in haulage.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting way of introducing me. No one's ever said I'm whatever you said. To be honest with you, it's been a very long day. I apologise now. I'm half asleep.
So, for those of you who don't know Mike, he is, of course, the Space Tenant, Mike Feeling, author of the Dreamcast Junkyard A to Z. There we go. Oh, the Dreamcast A to Z of Dreamcast games. So I will have to put that on my graphics. So thank you for joining us, Mike. So we've just been talking about mine and Lewis's experiences of not being very good, and Brian being slightly better at this. I'm going to kick back to you for the question that I asked these guys. When was your first experience of this? When did you first play this game?
Yeah, first experience of 18-wheeler was on the demo disc on the official Dreamcast magazine in the UK back in mid-2000. Whenever it came out, it's all blurred into one. But whenever it came out, it was the first level and the first parking level, I believe. Right. Yeah. And then I bought it from Woolworths, which I seem to mention every time on this podcast.
Yeah, shout out to Woolworths.
Yeah. And I bought it. Yeah, bought the copy for, I think it was like £7, something ridiculous back in the day, and played it near the end of the Dreamcast life. So yeah.
Excellent. Yeah. And just on that, I've noticed the parking levels. Lewis, did you get to play these at all?
Yeah. So just to add kind of like to what Brian was discussing, I did play it quite a bit, and I felt like I was getting better the more I played it, to the point where I could, consistently get to maybe level 3. So I got to the point where, as well, because when you first start, you might miss the parking levels because you keep getting thrashed by the evil bad guy who's annoyed at you for everything, even though it's mostly his fault. And I did get some of them. They're actually quite fun. Like I know this is like the weirdest thing, but then again, I'm wearing a Shenmue shirt, so I love mundane in games. But like, you could just have like a big compilation of just parking levels, and just I don't know. That was like a really sort of weirdly fun mini game. Like, I've been learning to drive, and who would have thought that parking was fun? But just to say, like, to get my criticism of the game out of the way, I would like to say it's a mix of Crazy Taxi and Outrun. I'm sure there's other driving games that use time limits, against you, but those are the two that I can draw from. And is it just Crazy Taxi and trucks? No. And the thing is like, unlike Outrun, I feel like I'm always running out of time, and there's never enough time, and there's too much focus on getting those +3 cars that you have to crash into to get extra time. It just feels a little bit like you're constantly fighting against the clock, and I don't feel like I've been able to, really master it. I don't think so. It feels a little bit like you're fighting against that the whole time.
So do you know what? To jump in on the other side, I do actually quite like the time mechanic, despite not being good, because when we ran the Dreamcast Junkyard Dreamcast League, or whatever it was, that we did on Facebook a few years ago, I'd always considered myself okay at Crazy Taxi until I started to see other people's scores and was just a bit like, right, I can play Crazy Taxi for a long time, but I'm not putting up any of the types of scores that other people are doing. So I kind of play it, but never forced myself to really get any better at it. But whereas with this, I'd only started playing it properly again this evening, but I kind of got in that mindset of I keep getting right next to that checkpoint. I'm gonna have another go. I'm gonna have another go. I'm gonna have another, and I'd kind of got myself into this like relentlessness of then, like me and Lewis were discussing. You start looking for. Surely there must be some other trucks around here to help me because I'm like 1 second short. So if I can get one more 3 second truck, I can open it up. And then I'm not sure if he's in the stream or if he's watching, but James Jarvis, who's done some video work or does video work for the team, he's got a video up of this that I'll link to in a bit. When I watched it to see how he was doing on the first level, and when he finished, I was saying to Lewis, he was had 11 seconds left on the clock, even though he had it on very easy, like I did. And there was a truck in front of him, and he's like, "Shall I smash this truck now? I've got plenty of time." And he just kind of coasted. And I was thinking, what am I doing so wrong to not be anywhere near this? So I do like that. The outrun comparison is brilliant because, like Brian said, you've got those lanes, haven't you? And I tried to have a little explore, like what is down. If I try and turn left here, what's down here, right at the start? And you can't turn left; it just forces you back onto the road. So it is a linear driving experience with optional routes. So parking is fun. Parking flash games were the rage in the early 2000s. They were, Lawrence. Yeah, that's a good shout. So yeah, if you think about then then it's always obviously going to be compared to Crazy Taxi, but it's a different experience, isn't it? Would we describe Crazy Taxi's open world? How would we describe that?
It's about as close as console games were able to do at the time. Maybe,
yeah,
but
so it's a very small open world, but it's the world is there.
I would say it's more like sandboxy. It's you're not.
There we go.
It's not a strict path. You have options for discovery and exploration, and it rewards those in a way that I don't feel American Trucker is.
It's a limited open world, isn't it? It's limited open world. Semi-open world.
Sure.
Right. So it came quite late, so it was 2001, but it is quite fairly well received. So I'll see if I can get this up on screen while you guys have a chat about this. But what type of score do you think this would have received at the time? What would you go for?
I'd say maybe slightly above average. So we're talking 7, maybe 6, 7. Personally, I don't dislike the game, but I feel the problem with it is that there's other games that do that kind of gameplay just slightly more better and fluid, probably.
Yeah. I think the game was overscored, but I think the game got quite high scores as well because of the fact it was near the tail end, wasn't it? I don't necessarily think there's not much to the game, is there? So it's doesn't score highly for content.
What was it? In the A to Z?
A to Z. You know what? I've got that, and I can check that in a second. But if Mike can't recall, we should remember every one of those games. The longevity. So yeah, Lawrence is saying 7 out of 10. IGN gave it 7.8, and we've talked before. I like to use them because we used them on the first episode. So it's a good kind of. It's probably loads of different people, but it's good kind of comparison. 4.
Yeah.
Out of 5.
Yeah.
Mike. Yeah. So I probably agree with that. Let's have a look at some of our chat. I think the Dreamcast has been a great console. It has.
So do we.
No. So he's picked the right room for that comment.
Always true.
Well, she's picked the right room. Yeah. So right. The next genius pun. I don't give a truck, yo. Keep rolling, rolling, rolling. If only I had my Fred Durst hat, I could have put it on. In terms of vehicles on Dreamcast games, where do you rate these trucks? Well, I'm going to start with Brian because he's top right. Brian, How do you enjoy driving? Being a truck driver?
Interesting. Yes, but I wish there were more places to drive. I feel like the feel and the weightiness of the vehicles, even the lumbering, the slow acceleration, like there's something to that I think could be really engaging and fun in some contexts. I just don't think this type of game was it. But the vehicles themselves, yeah, I mean it's kind of fun just ramming through shit and yeah, I don't know. I do like the trucks in a vacuum for sure.
I'm going to see if I can try and get the selection screen up here as we're chatting because there's some good vehicles in here. Asphalt Cowboy, Streamline, Longhorn. I didn't actually have a go with him. He looks more like a biker personally.
Sorry to interrupt, Kev. Isn't there like a Japanese character? But I don't know if that's exclusive to like PS2 or something.
Right. So I did not see that. I don't know if it's an unlock.
Maybe, yeah.
But we've and then we've got the character. I can't remember her name, but she was one of the ones I played with initially. Lewis, driving the trucks then, or any other type of experiences on the Dreamcast, do you think that it rivals or it's near? I would say it's way more playable than Daytona, which I know that we criticize as a.
We'll get complaints. We'll get complaints again, Kev, if you say.
We will get complaints, but it's not my fault that people like a game that handles as poorly as that Dreamcast port does.
I love Daytona. I mean, even the Dreamcast version. I mean, I to be fair, you have to play it with a wheel. It's kind of calibrated for that, but you can turn down the sensitivity and it's passable with a controller. But yeah, I know what you mean.
Maybe the forklifts in Shenmue.
That's
comparable.
Brilliant.
It's the bus in Tokyo Bus Guide. That's what it's all about.
Yeah.
See, I've never played that. What I did like about it is it kind of reminded me of the GTA missions where you get to drive a big old tanker, and it's like that kind of risk reward. As you can see, I went for that 3-second van, and they never really explain what those vans have done wrong, have they? I don't know if they're related to that rival in some way or why we're smashing them, but there's that kind of reward of I'm trying to get top line speed, but that comes at the detriment of the handling. And I do like it. I do like the way that it handles. And in his article on this, Tom did say, as a HGV licensed driver, that he did like that it did have some of the kind of similarities of driving a real truck, especially the parking was one of the things he met, which I'm mentioning because he always says no one reads his articles. So if nothing else, that was just to prove a point, Mike. How do you find the handling on this, though, Mike? If you were to sum it up for us?
Well, as someone who doesn't drive a truck, or indeed at all, I think it's very close to what I imagine driving a truck would be like, which is quite difficult.
Crashing into people, veering across the road.
It's weighty, isn't it? It's a weighty control system, so it feels like you've got some weight behind you, so it doesn't feel like you're driving sort of an empty van, as it were. So yeah, it's good handling. I mean, when I first played it, it was a very different experience, wasn't it? There wasn't anything really like it at the time, so it was really, really fun experience and a new handling model. So yeah, it's aged a bit possibly now. I think there's been some better truck based games since.
Yeah, like the Runner series, Snow Runner,
which is very popular with our staff.
Euro Truck Simulator, one of my favorite games of all time. But it's a fun game, isn't it? It's Sega all over in terms of the fact that they've taken the art of truck driving and made it into a fun arcade machine. So
I would be interested in trying it with a wheel, which I don't actually own, but that's maybe some car that I'd look into. Favorite characters then, guys. If we start with Lewis, because he's dropped down to the bottom right now. I've been messing around with the screen options. Did you have a favorite character or a favorite truck?
I mean, unfortunately, they're all slightly like anonymous. Like,
they're all.
But I quite liked the enemy who like we were talking about. He blames you. You know, what is it like? There's a traffic jam and it's all your fault. You know, he's like a nutcase. Yeah, he's like mad. But he's kind of the standout character, really, isn't he? And Yeah. One thing I just want to jump into actually, because we keep saying Crazy Taxi, is like Crazy Taxi, this game does quite a good job of the set dressing for the kind of part of America that it's in, I guess. I know this sounds like it's coming from a very stereotypical British view of America, but I noted down some of the sponsors. So like in Crazy Taxi, you've got you have like KFC, Pizza Hut, Levi's. In this, I spotted Denny's, Texaco, and also if you blink and you'll miss it, but you can see Holiday Inn as well. So there you go. There's your sponsors for this game.
I think it's good, but the geography knowledge is a little bit lacking in terms of, I think the distance between different parts of America is.
Oh yeah.
I mean,
very small.
Interesting way.
So it's not a sim. I presumed that was geographically accurate.
New York to Miami, and
it's about 90 seconds, I think, isn't it? Yeah. Just before we move on, I was gonna check the other guys' characters, but we got a question here. I say a question from Sega Saturn Lad. Is this live?
No.
Yes, it is. It is. Don't listen to him. It is live.
If it's live to you,
then
that's all that matters.
Another one for Mike. There is only so much teasing of the A to Z a man can take. Hopefully, I got the tone right, Lawrence.
Don't blame me. Don't blame me. Blame Pixel Heart for not releasing games on time.
Fair. Okay, so we were talking a bit about characters. Mike or Brian, do you have a favorite? Who's your trucker of choice?
Not really. I mean, I think they're all kind of interchangeable. I guess Highway Cat was probably the one I was the most often, but because I got a sense that her top speed was a little bit higher, but yeah, it doesn't really. I don't think it matters.
Yeah. That's what I played as. I think the stats were slightly better on her compared to the others.
I think it's quite generic. It's quite generic.
They don't give you
characters.
Yeah, they don't give you a lot of, and in the same way, I mean, if we're contrasting this with Crazy Taxi again, like you get to see them as an avatar on screen in the same way that, and then there's no banter with passengers in the way that's like, hey, get in or shut up, and like that kind of stuff. Like you at least had a little bit of that between Gus and Axel and Gina and BD Joe, all the characters, the iconic characters that we gave us more of an opportunity as players to kind of just build that charm whereas here it's like, I pick my avatar, I see them on that screen, and then after that it's just a first person view. I mean, I like the truck cabins, that's kind of fun to see, but I don't really get a sense for what these characters, who they are, or what charisma they may bring.
I think I've got some of the interior here. The interior is good. It reminds me of a game that I'm now completely blanking on that got a port to the Saturn that had a dangling Sonic. Gale Racer, there we go.
Which was originally
an arcade game, wasn't it?
Called I can't remember what it's called now.
And then as soon as I said that, the footage goes back to being outside. But yeah, I did like the little details like that. I don't know if this is just my copy or maybe my Dreamcast, but I get a lot of artifact glitching when I'm in that interior view. What view do you guys play with on this? Are you the third person that I've got on now, as you see me driving along on the verge, or do you use the interior?
Interior for me, at least. The whole fact everything like moves around on a dashboard is one of the coolest things I remember from the demo.
Yeah, I switch back and forth. I like exactly those kinds of details that Mike mentioned with the interior view, but exterior, if I'm like planning to like crash into other things, which happens all the time, boxes, telephone poles, other cars, you can see that destruction a little more. It's a little more satisfying to see it from the external view, I think. So
I do love the elongated rear view mirror you get in the first person view. Because initially I was thinking, well, how would you even play this in the standard mode? Or in the cockpit, but then when I saw that, I was like, "Oh right, you can actually see all the way along the trailer." And I thought that was a really cool touch, especially to go with all the kind of stuff, or like the sunglass. One of them's got sunglasses that moves around. One of them's got like a clipboard that's moving around. I just thought it was really cool. They had kind of thought about making each one of those spaces differently, which, to be honest, they didn't need to do, did they? Like they could have got away with there being one truck, or we kind of touched on this. Like, is it dated? How does it feel? A new question for the show: how much would you pay for a Switchport? So say you go on the eShop, and there's a crazy. I've just called it Crazy Taxi. It's not a Crazy Taxi stream, I promise. So you go on the Switch store, and there is a version of 18-wheeler American Pro trucker. What's the price that gets you to buy on day one?
I don't know if I do.
No, not me.
Yeah.
199.
Yeah,
199.
it's a mid. I think it's the kind of game which needs to be on a compilation, isn't it? It's the kind of game which needs to be on a sort of a Sega arcade compilation.
Yeah,
I'd happily have that, but it's not a stack. Something like a little, the next Sega little mini arcade machine, something like that. That'd be awesome. Little steering wheel.
Still have a tiny steering.
Little
toothpicks.
Yeah, little Sega arcade machine with a little steering wheel, little mini one. Imagine how many games. Oh, amazing! I'm gonna email Sega tonight.
So what? No, nothing higher on 199. What I'm offering? I'm going to offer it, Brian. I'm going to offer you it for $3.99. You can take
American.
I'll buy it just because I've bought a lot lesser things or stupider things for more money. So I'm like, yeah, of course. If I see that, I'm like, yeah, I kind of want that game to play randomly, maybe in a truck. Well, who knows? Yeah.
I like it indeed. Okay, I think I know the answer to this one then, but another question I prepared: buy, download, or other system. And to give you some context of other systems, I have a pre-prepared, I hope this is the right tab, eBay tab here. So look, it's about, you look like you would get this for about £25 for a PAL copy. Maybe a bit more for the US versions, or there's a sealed one there for 35. And then other consoles, it is dirt cheap. So look, PlayStation 2, you'd get it for £4 postage. And then as there's a game, there was a GameCube one out there. You are. So GameCube, about £8, about roughly. Yeah. So in answer to that question, then, should you buy this for the Dreamcast? Should you download it, as Lewis did? If he wants to plug his SD card again there, feel free. Or should you just buy it? Is it not important to play this on the Dreamcast?
So I have the PS2 version as well. I played through it a little bit. I don't know if I paid close attention to all the differences. Whatever you can get is good enough. And honestly, if you can download it, just download it. Like, it's not necessarily a game for me that I have a lot of sentimental attachment to, that I feel like I would need the physical version. I have it from the Dreamcast just because I bought it. Or I got it years ago. And I think my mom got it dirt cheap at the time. So it's like, I don't know. Don't go too far out of your way. Download it. If you really like it, well then, go ahead and splurge for a physical copy or an arcade cabinet if you really.
If you've got the room, there would be no other consideration for me.
The disadvantage of the other versions on console is that they have the Acclaim logo in the startup, and that's just like, one of the worst things to see when you boot up a game. So, no love for Acclaim from me.
Yeah, there was Mike missed this, but
I love the Extreme G series. No, actually they weren't bad. They were fine. I like those games. But
the best transition or intro to any episode we had was the start of this one, because of that, presented by Sega, that this game does have on the Dreamcast. So I would say that it is worth the Dreamcast version. I've never heard that on any other. So we had the question: how does the DC compare to the PS2? So Brian, I'm going to imagine it's negligible, because
I don't want to say for sure just because it wasn't something I was paying attention to. I was kind of playing it very passively or the PS2 version while trying to manage the dog as well. It wasn't I wasn't really sitting down with an eye towards what are the differences here, but it's a pretty bare bones game to begin with, and I don't think that changes content wise. Or
I think there might have been a touch slowdown in PS2 version of Home.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
I'm trying to think whether it was that one or the sequel, because there was a sequel, wasn't there? King of Route 66. I
Oh,
believe.
that's right. Yeah, I never played that one.
And I think
That is
that one
correct,
had a bit of slowdown on that one as well. So it could have been that one instead. But I did have the PS2 version. So when I was buying lots and lots of retro games for all consoles, I think 20p in Chips, which is a UK retro game store, or was a retro game store. I think it was 20 pence. I think I paid for it. So that sort of shows you that it wasn't particularly popular. I think the problem is, isn't it? It was on the Dreamcast. It was quite a high-profile game. Magazines covered it quite a lot. On the PS2 or GameCube, it really wasn't a high-profile game at all.
Yeah, it's just shoved in with everything else that came out on the PS2, I guess. So that's we can't really answer that if we're honest in Gene UK or however we're pronouncing that. Apologies if I've butchered that. So it's kind of the summary then. This is a good point. I'd like to see a Digital Foundry comparison. That would be the most niche video they've ever done, especially if they threw the GameCube version onto that, which I do. Like I said, I do. I've never actually got around to playing that, so maybe that would be something for us to do.
Was that a PC version?
I don't know. I couldn't actually find anything on the PC. Well, I couldn't see anything when I had a quick scan. Let's put it that way. I had another question, and once again, it has just dropped off my head because I was laughing about whatever it was.
I've got a question.
Go on, Lewis. Let's go yours first.
Did anyone play the other mode in the game, like the sort of time attack mode?
Yeah, it was like a racing. It was almost like they turned the track layouts, or at least used portions of them, into a circular course or circular courses. That's the one I remember. And I think it was like kind of a time attack mode where you had to do complete 3 laps, beat the rival, and accumulate time on the way. I mean, it was fine. It was fine.
And my question was going to be: has anyone played the multiplayer on this? The answer is normally no. So I'm really interested to hear from Mike.
Yes.
What's it like, Mike?
So I played this, as I always say on these podcasts and streams, that I played this with my wife, and it actually is pretty good fun. Actually, it doesn't take a massive hit in its frame rate. I think it sort of tones down some of the detail in the background to accommodate for it. But it's pretty good fun. Actually, it's a decent multiplayer experience. I think one thing I will say is going back to what Lewis said as well. I think one of the problems with the games is it doesn't really have much to it at all. It does really feel quite, not only does it feel bare bones, but also it feels like it's a bit of an afterthought. I think it always felt a little bit like it was Sega trying to port the last few games they could over to the Dreamcast with the minimal fuss. There isn't really that much added to the game at all, is there? Which is a bit of a shame, because I think if it added some more stuff to it, if it had a bit more depth to it, would have been a really, really good late Dreamcast game.
And so I can't find a way of getting this up on screen, but I was told, and I think I'm allowed to share this is due to have the website come back. So I'm going to quote this verbatim from James Jarvis. The 18-wheeler homepage is due to come back online soon, along with a whole host of other games. There are homepages via the in-game browser. So if I can get my footage up, you can see that. So I'm going to imagine that's like score attack and score logging. Was probably what that was. If that came back and if that was seamless and easy to do with the retro, I'm calling it the retro pie, that is completely wrong. What am I trying to say, Mike? Dream pie.
Dream pie, sorry. Yeah.
Would that add in a more fun or a more challenging, or would that change anything?
I think I missed the question because I was looking at one of the comments, which is quite funny.
We'll get to that in a minute. I already spotted that.
I know. I presume what you said. Sorry, Kev, I was listening to you. I presume what you said is, does it make the game better when you have the
would you feel more likely to go and give it a go if there was other people you could compete against, at least scores? So.
Leaderboards.
Leaderboards. Yeah.
I don't think leaderboards are enough, are they, to sort of make a game change? I mean, we look at something like Pod on Dreamcast, where it went from being a game which pretty much was pointless to have as single player because it didn't have any content, it was pretty poor, to a game which was near enough a must-have if you had the Dream Pie, because it was a game which was good fun, especially in the early days of Dream Pie when everyone was playing it. So I don't think leaderboards necessarily would make me rethink it.
What about I get the impression you're quite a competitive guy, Brian, with game scoring. Would this change your point of view?
I don't know. I like a good leaderboard, I suppose, but honestly, if the fundamental game doesn't, I mean, if I don't feel like there's a possibility, like if I don't feel like it's going to reward me for continuously replaying it and trying to find ways to improve and just the tiniest of things to do better and to experiment with, the leaderboard isn't going to make the difference. It's more like how sound are those mechanics and systems in the game, and yeah, it's just not that type of game that I would feel compelled to try to min max my play of, honestly. So yeah, leaderboard probably wouldn't matter.
And then just you something that we talked about, myself and Lewis. Do you know the upgrades on this? Like we unlocked the horn upgrade. Does it do anything? Does it do anything at all?
No idea.
Other than make the horn louder? No. Okay. So
as far as I know, it doesn't. I mean, I don't think. Again, that goes back to the point of it doesn't really have much extra, does it? It's an arcade machine where the appeal in the arcade was the fact it was a spectacle.
Yeah. Did it have a trucker horn in the arcade?
I think it did, actually. Yeah. But good point.
Amazing. So if I ever saw that, I would definitely have a go. Now, we alluded to this question. I'm going to go to Lewis first on this because he did touch on this before. So Neil might have missed this. On a scale of 1 to Shenmue forklift, how do the vehicles handle? We did touch on this before, Neil, but it's a genius wording. I wished I'd thought of that myself. So we kind of agreed that the handling was okay. It was a bit satisfying. I liked it a bit more than the other guys. But compared to the forklifts, Lewis specifically mentioned.
I prefer the forklifts, honestly.
That's one for the forklifts.
No,
Mike?
It's just the gears did my head in. Like there'll be a bit where like you're trying to get one of those +3 cars and you go over like a bit of like dirt and then it's like lower your gears and I'm like, what? You know, I thought I was going at like I don't get gears like on these trucks. I don't know how they work. I suppose maybe Tom might be able to shed some light on that one day. But yeah, the gears kept doing my head in, and I don't remember there being gears on the forklift. So 1 for forklifts.
I just say forward reverse, isn't it? Yeah. So I do like the gears and the voiceover guys because it's the closest I've ever come to being in Rocky and having that trainer shouting at you, like, "Get the chicken, Rocky!" So lower your gear. It's like okay. It's like
I did like the guy. Yeah, like the guy sort of schools you. You know, he's like, "You're making good time." Like that's quite nice when he says that, and then I lose the level anyway. So you know.
Well, one of the things he does say is he says something along the lines of, "Oh, it's pretty far away, but don't rush." And it's like, really? It's a whole concept of the game, not rushing.
Point?
Yeah, I feel like all other times you're constantly stressing me out to go faster, and now you're telling me that it's okay. Right. So yeah, that was a bit odd. But yeah. So is there anything else anyone would, or any questions anyone else would like to ask about this? Go on, Lewis.
Is there any music in this game? If so, what does it sound like?
I don't fucking remember. It's the most generic, like
it's
soundtrack.
I don't know if this is the right term for the genre, but is it called like bluegrass? It's like a kind of
possibly.
So.
I've got the tracks downloaded. There's a website you can download. Obviously, I'm not going to tell where that website is, but there's a website you can download all the songs from. I'm just playing it in my headphones now, and yeah, a bit jazzy, I suppose. A bit jazzy as well for everybody.
I do. I'll tell you what. I'll put some footage up in a second, and I'll put the sound back up on that. I did like the fact that the music kind of sounds like it's coming from within the cab or from the CB. So it's got that kind of
has that filter behind it.
Yeah, I thought that was quite nice. Quite a nice touch. So
I do feel though that they missed the opportunity to do a Crazy Taxi and have like a wicked licensed soundtrack, and you know, get some
Mohead.
Or maybe like that one Vandals album where they did like a country album. Just like whack that on there if you still want to stick to the punk. or
No, it would have to be 80s. It would have to be 80s hair metal, I think.
You reckon? Yeah.
Fitting.
What I would have liked is if they'd got all like the people who did all the voices in the game to like form a band and like sing songs about each truck, like like folk tales or something, like folk songs about I can't remember what they're called now, Wildcat or whatever.
Driving on the road, smashing vans.
Yeah, exactly.
A bit like Sonic R Racing.
Well, on the nose there, yeah.
Yeah. It'd have to be a sort of a country sort of soundtrack, wouldn't it? Mojo Nixon doing some good country in the background would be a great soundtrack for you.
I would say it doesn't bode well for the game though that I've at least me, I've played it this evening for about an hour, and when Lewis asked that question about the music, I was just like, oh, it goes no. Oh no, wait, that's Crazy Taxi again. So that is just like, it doesn't get stuck in your head, does it? So whatever the music is.
Well, it's it's not very memorable, and it's also kind of the way it is mixed. It's not poorly done, but I feel like the truck sounds are just more of the focal point of the audio in this game. So
yeah,
I don't know. It's all kind of drowned out anyway, a little bit, for better or worse. Go ahead, Mike.
I was saying it's very difficult to sort of compete with something like Crazy Taxi as well, isn't it? Because Crazy Taxi did the music so perfectly well. It's difficult to compete with it.
And it was a central pillar of like the presentation in that game, in a way that the music is not for this.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I do like everything else about it is quite nice though, sound wise, and it's got some nice kind of effects and the gear changing and the ratio and engine sounds. And like I think Torque is the name. You can tell a tiny bit of difference between each truck. I'll just turn that down a little bit so it's in the background. But I don't dislike the game. I definitely suggest that people check it out if you're watching this. If you're still watching this and you've never played it before, I would be interested to take this to my partner's brother, because he's a Stobart driver. And I've never even thought about the idea. I'm going to be like, Bob, give this a try and let me know how accurate this is to your life. But yeah, it's not a bad game by any stretch of the imagination or any means. So I really wish I had some better footage to show people rather than me constantly failing. But there we are.
I think that we're kind of, I suppose, giving it the. I feel like maybe we've bashed it too much, but I will say there's a reason why you don't see people say it's better than Crazy Taxi or something. I feel like it kind of gets it gets the rep it probably deserves as sort of like a cool game that's a bit flawed, I suppose, but still a good Sega experience.
I think one thing to say is the fact that if it wasn't on Dreamcast with its limited library, would we even be talking about the game at all?
Probably no. Yeah, that's probably a completely fair comment. I would almost say no. Mike, question for you: do you remember, without looking, where this placed on the top 200 games 2016 vote?
I don't think it was massively high. We did have one person who said it was their favorite game of all time and voted it 10 times. That was fun. Yeah, I think it was sort of. I'm going to say sort of around 100-ish.
100, and then Brian, would you go higher or lower than that?
Wait, as far as the ranking, if I was to say how other people should vote for, or my guess for how it.
Just your guess. Where do you think this was on the?
Oh, I don't know. How many games were there on the
200?
Yeah, we had up to 200 for the. I don't know, maybe 120, 190.
And then Lewis, I'm going to take yours in the interest of fairness. This is your chance to beat Mike.
Is it
probably like in the top 50?
Maybe like 60 something.
The winner is Lewis. It was 71. I've gone to the. This is just like when I teach online. I've opened up the wrong tab. In a minute, I'll get the right tab up. So this is 71. And the reason why I wanted to look at this was just to have a little look at some of the other games. Maybe I don't even have this tab open. No, there we go. I shouldn't have doubted myself. So it's down 23 places originally.
Yeah.
So it's been really high the year before. But if you ever look at some of the stuff that's around it, so Spider-Man, it's ahead of Speed Devils, it's ahead of Tokyo Highway Challenge 2, I've never actually played.
Dude,
It's ahead of
wow.
Virtual On, the
Sorry.
2K series, Looney Tunes,
Wow.
Resident Evil, Street Fighter Alpha 2, Dino Crisis. It's like it's beating some genuine heavyweights.
But yeah, I think I would put almost all of those games above it. But
Yeah.
but at the end of the day, it is an AM2 game, right? Like I think AM2
So
Shout out
developed it.
AM2.
It's like, it's kind of their B team, maybe. It's not their best work. I mean, it certainly came at a time. I think I forget who said it, but it was like, the idea that these were kind of their newer arcade games, and they were maybe under a little bit of a rush to just get them onto a home console or multiple home consoles, and not worry about fleshing them out or turning them into more robust experiences in the way that Sega did with some of their previous arcade ports. So
and that Jarvis, who we've been talking about this, it's much more, is James Jarvis. He says, so steering wheel in the arcade is around the same size as the Initial D arcade. I'm not actually aware of I'm aware of Initial D. I've never actually seen a cab of that. So
I played that one, yeah.
So is it an oversized wheel? I presumed it would be like a massive.
It's been a long time. I mean, would Initial D have like a big wheel? Isn't it just like a normal?
I thought it was like
it's a normal wheel.
Yeah,
it might be angled differently.
Yeah,
right. So 71. And like you said, there's some heavyweights there that it has beaten. I feel like if we were to do a 2021 top 200 games, it would be a game that we probably all agree would be lower. And
see, the problem is that it's if you go to a Dreamcast and want arcade experiences, it's the kind of game you want, isn't it? You don't have it's a lot of people like Dreamcast because of the arcade experience to it, and 18-wheeler is one of the games which is a proper arcade experience type game. You've got games like that were below that are more in depth, like Speed Devils and things. But actually, in short bursts, in a 10-minute play, which you want to do, 18-wheeler is probably a better game. So as an arcade experience, we're going for that direction. That's always the problem with Dreamcast, isn't it? Because the fact that people have different expectations of what they want from games on console.
I'm not like, I don't feel bad that I played it. Like, I did enjoy what I played.
I don't feel bad. Why did you make me come on this stream, you monsters?
No, but it's just another Sega game, good Sega arcade game that obviously has many that are better than it. But I mean, it's weird how I've spent so long being a Dreamcast fan and not actually given this a chance at this point, But to be fair, when I was younger into Dreamcast, I would have just I would have gotten so far and just given up, because it does have a learning curve for sure. But once I got past that, I did feel quite like I was sort of getting it a bit, and there was a point where I was sort of I was playing it, and I was like, yeah, I get what's going on here. I feel like I'm faster and I'm beating the time better. I'm beating the rival, instead of coming second. And yeah, so I think I might play it a bit more, but yeah, there's still it suffers in the sense that there's just too many good games that you keep wanting to compare it to, the whole time you're playing it. Just to add, one thing I wanted to say actually is I kind of feel like if the truck was a little bit less weighty, a little bit less real, I suppose. Not that this is probably anything like driving a truck in real life as it is, an arcade game, but I kind of like it if the truck had really stupid physics. It was knocking cars over. It didn't have too much struggle going around corners. You're flying around corners, trailer swinging back and forth, jackknife in it, all these things, going absolutely ballistic with a big truck destroying everything. I think that would have been a much funner game. That's my sequel idea.
It sounds a lot like if they'd made a video game of Duel, or whatever the Spielberg film is, about the kind of the terror truck that's chasing the guy. So it does sound good. Brilliant film. If you've never seen it, I'd check that out. So we're getting towards the end. So I'd say wrap this up. So we've answered these questions. So if you're gonna buy this, did download it or other system, we're pretty much all saying, unless you want the box, unless you're a shelf person as most of us are here, probably not worth the value of the Dreamcast port. We'd all agree with that still, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, then. How much would you pay for a Switch port? I'd pay up to $5.99. No one else here would pay more than £2 for it. I definitely have gone that.
But I'd happily have it on a compilation.
On a compilation, yep. So doing Mike an injustice
with Crazy Taxi and other much
Crazy
better
Taxi,
games.
yeah. Jumbo Safari.
Outrun 2.
Outrun 2. I would like to see Outrun 2 and Coast to Coast.
I mean, I would pay £100 for Outrun 2. I'll tell you that now. I'll say that tonight.
Yeah, so that's a good. So somewhere now that I've put my room back in order, someone on there is a 360 that exists just for the arcade version of Outrun that was on Xbox Live Arcade. Was brilliant, a brilliant version.
Love it. I still have that on one of my hard drives somewhere.
So. And then I'm just gonna. Yeah, there we go. So arcade or home, we'd probably say that this is a good home port. But if you get a chance to play the arcade, it sounds like the cab, even the stand up that Lewis mentioned at the start, just adds a lot to the game, a lot to the enjoyment. So I'm gonna do the same thing that I like to do to Mike, is bring a question on him right at the close that he's not prepared for. Mike, we normally do this at the start, but if we do this at the end, have you got any variations of this, or can you give us any box hands, or is it all the way still like last time?
I've literally got off a bus and got into this room.
Oh,
so,
here
I have that. To be fair, there's very little to see. I've got all three versions, but it's the same cover. Same cover for all three.
Same cover.
It's quite boring,
yeah, and probably no surprise. Like I said, I've got the Japanese version. It is completely playable. The only bit of text that seems to be in Japanese is when you turn it on. Is the text that explains what each mode is in Japanese, but the modes are really clear. So arcade, parking, options. So you don't really need the text to explain that. So there we go. Lewis, anything you would like to add in closing?
Surely the most perfect version of the game is the American copy, because it's like, fully USA.
I like it. Brian, if we go to you second, anything to add?
No, I think I've pretty much said everything I have on this one. Honestly, at the end of the day, there just isn't a ton there as far as to spark, more. I think this is like the perfect amount of time for us to chat about this game.
Yeah.
I just don't think there's much more we could really talk about that would be interesting in any way.
Describe it as the perfect rental game, which may have been like a bad term in the day, but I think now we maybe view that a bit differently. Perfect rental game or perfect evening game, just have a quick go on. And then Mike, any summary from you?
18-wheeler. Good game.
Good game. So there we are, guys. A good game. So I'm going to close with a few thank yous. So thank you to the guys for joining us. We are at Dreamcast Junkyard. You can catch us on Twitch. You can catch us on Twitter. Thank you for joining us for the Dreamcast Junkyard Video Game Book Club, where we've been looking at 18-wheeler American Pro Trucker. So just thank you very much. Like I said, this was our special 4th of July issue for Brian and all of our American followers out there. And don't forget, if you're at home, you could also celebrate the happy 5th of July, which is my mother's birthday, the provider of this very Dreamcast here. So she's never going to watch this stream, but I'm going to tell her, give you a shout out, and she'll say, "That's nice, dear. What time are we going out for dinner on Saturday?" So, but here we are. This is my original Dreamcast. There is a photo of me hugging this somewhere on our Twitter page. So thank you very much, guys. Thank you for everyone who's joined in and who's contributed. Please let us know your thoughts on Twitter or on the YouTube feed of what you think about. And they said Crazy Taxi again. That wouldn't be deliberate. About 18-wheeler, your thoughts on it. And if you are that person who voted it for it 10 times, feel free to let us know why you did that. Thanks, guys, and have a great evening.
See ya.
Everyone wave.